Night bleeds slowly into dawn over a sleepless city. Neon veins still pulse in the dark, flickering above rain-soaked streets that never learned the meaning of silence. Horns echo like impatient heartbeats. Screens glow behind 1,000 apartment windows, each one a tiny portal of noise. In one of those rooms, a man sits by the glass, motionless, his phone alive in his hand, scrolling, tapping, checking, comparing. His eyes move, but his spirit drifts. The room hums with invisible electricity, notifications, headlines, voices, expectations. The noise is not just around him, it's inside him. He does not yet know that this is the modern battlefield, not fought with weapons, but with attention. Every vibration steals a fragment of his focus, every headline a slice of his calm. The world has convinced him that to be still is to fall behind. Every second must be filled, every thought monetized, every silence broken. He feels a restlessness that no amount of scrolling can soothe, a hunger that no distraction can feed. Napoleon Hill once warned, "A man who cannot control his own mind can never control anything else." The man doesn't remember reading it, but his spirit recognizes the truth. He is surrounded by people who move fast but arrive nowhere. He hears them, the constant chatter, the argument of opinions, the race to be seen, the fear of missing out. Everyone is speaking, yet no one is listening. Everyone is connected, yet no one is in command. Noise has evolved. It no longer needs sound to exist. It travels through thoughts, through comparison, through invisible pressure. It disguises itself as urgency messages labeled important that have no meaning, opinions shouted as truth, trends worshipped as destiny. The man has lived inside this storm for so long that he has mistaken the storm for himself. His mind, once a clear sky, is now a crowded marketplace where every vendor shouts for his attention. He sighs, places the phone down, and stares at his reflection in the window. Behind him, the city lights shimmer on the glass like fragments of other people's dreams. He can see his own tired eyes looking back, asking silently, "When did I lose command of my mind?" For a moment, everything slows. He hears only his breathing, shallow, uneven. Then, beneath that breath, something quieter, a pulse, ancient and steady, the whisper of awareness itself. It's not a voice, yet it speaks. What if silence is not emptiness, but energy waiting to be focused? The question startles him. He feels it ripple through the noise like a single drop disturbing still water. The thought seems too simple to matter, yet too powerful to ignore. What if silence isn't the absence of life, but the raw material of creation? What if every great idea, every act of genius, was born not in noise, but in the calm between thoughts? He closes his eyes. The hum of the refrigerator fades. The city's distant sirens dissolve. There, in that fragile pause, he senses something he hasn't felt in years: space. Space for a thought to breathe. Space for intuition to rise. Space for himself to return. This is the first crack in the wall. Every fortress of distraction begins to crumble the moment awareness enters. The man doesn't know it yet, but he has taken the first step toward mastery. To withdraw from noise is an act of rebellion. To be still is to declare independence from the collective chaos. He remembers moments from childhood when time felt infinite, sitting beneath a tree, drawing lines in the dirt, listening to the wind. Back then, silence wasn't frightening. It was freedom. Somewhere along the path of adulthood, he traded that freedom for stimulation, and now he can't stop chasing the next click, the next sound, the next validation. His mind has become a crowded room with no door. He rises, walks toward the window, and opens it. The cold morning air rushes in, carrying with it the scent of rain and dust. For a brief second, he feels alive again, not because something new has entered, but because something false has left. The city continues to hum, but the hum no longer owns him. He studies the street below. Taxis, hurried footsteps, coffee and paper cups. Each person moves like a note in a symphony that forgot its melody. He wonders how many of them have felt this same exhaustion, this invisible fatigue of being always on. He realizes the world doesn't just sell products. It sells noise disguised as importance. Every app, every screen, every algorithm is built to keep him busy enough to forget his own power. And yet, deep within, Another truth begins to surface, the law that all great minds have obeyed. The quieter you become, the more clearly you hear guidance from within. That inner voice, calm, measured, infinitely wise, has been waiting behind the static all along. He closes the window again, sits down, and this time leaves the phone face down. The light of dawn touches the wall. He breathes and counts. 1, 2, 3. The mind protests. Thoughts rush in like uninvited guests, but he stays. He watches them come and go without chasing them. The storm begins to soften. He notices a subtle shift, not outside, but within. The noise is still there, yet it no longer dictates his rhythm. The human mind, Hill wrote, is a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. If you are always tuned to the wrong frequency, you never receive the signal meant for you. This man, unknowingly, has just changed his station. The static fades, and with it the illusion of urgency. Beneath everything there is a steady tone, calm, golden, absolute. He remembers reading about the greatest inventors and thinkers who guarded their solitude as sacred. They understood that silence is the soil of revelation. Edison's ideas came in midnight stillness. Ford dreamed his machines in the quiet of focus. Hill wrote his laws in deep mental calm. Silence was their ally, not their punishment. They were not avoiding the world. They were commanding it from a higher dimension, the inner dimension of thought. The man realizes he has been feeding the wrong wolf, the restless one that craves attention instead of depth. But tonight marks a change. He doesn't need to renounce the world. He needs to reorder it. The outer world will always be noisy, but his inner world can become disciplined, deliberate, sacred. He imagines a future version of himself, the one who wakes each day in peace, whose thoughts move like clean water, whose words carry weight because they rise from silence. That version of him already exists in potential. The only barrier is noise. To meet that self, he must first conquer the addiction to chaos. Outside, the sky begins to pale. Birds test the morning with hesitant calls. The first rays of sunlight pierce the horizon. He watches as darkness retreats, realizing that the rising sun is not just in the sky, it's within him. Each breath feels heavier, more deliberate, as if his lungs are learning a new rhythm aligned with clarity instead of panic. He thinks of all the years he mistook noise for life. The endless conversations, the opinions, the emotional reactions. He sees now that every time he reacted, he surrendered a piece of his will. Focus isn't something you find, it's something you reclaim from the things that stole it. And the thieves wear familiar faces: fear, validation, comparison. He whispers a sentence, not as a mantra, but as a decision. From this moment, I will not be ruled by noise. The words hang in the air, simple yet revolutionary. They mark the turning point between reaction and rule, between confusion and clarity. The man smiles faintly. He understands that silence will test him. It always does. The mind will beg for distraction. The world will tempt him with stimulation. But discipline is born only in resistance. The mind must first fight to be free before it learns to be still. He sits longer, letting thoughts dissolve like clouds. The glow of the phone still flickers from the table, but now it feels small, a tool, not a master. He realizes that silence does not destroy connection. It purifies it. It filters what matters from what doesn't. The voices worth hearing grow louder when the unnecessary ones fade. As the sun fully rises, the city roars back to life: engines, alarms, laughter, footsteps. Yet inside the room, a strange peace remains. He is no longer part of the noise. He is the witness of it. The battlefield still exists, but the soldier has awakened. This awakening is subtle, but it's the seed of all transformation. The man hasn't escaped the world, he has stepped above it, and from this higher silence, he can finally see. He can see how every empire begins in thought, how every victory is born from calm focus. He can see that power doesn't come from shouting louder, it comes from hearing clearer. He stands, stretches, and whispers again. A man who cannot control his own mind can never control anything else. The words no longer sound like philosophy, they sound like a vow. He looks at the day ahead, the meetings, the messages, the movement, and realizes he now has a weapon the world cannot steal: awareness. With awareness, noise loses its authority. With awareness, every distraction becomes a test he can pass. With awareness, the war of noise becomes the training ground for mastery. He breathes deeply, opens the door, and steps into the day. The sounds rush toward him, But something has changed. He carries silence like armor. Each footstep feels intentional, each glance measured. He doesn't resist the noise. He walks through it untouched. And somewhere in the unseen realms of the mind, Napoleon Hill's words echo softly, a promise and a prophecy. Control your mind and you control your world. The war of noise continues for billions, but for one man, the battle has already been won. The first light of morning stretches across the city like a slow exhale. The air holds a soft chill, the kind that reminds you the world is new again, even if you are not. He steps toward the balcony barefoot, the floor cool beneath his feet. Behind him, the phone lies silent on the table, face down, powerless for once. It is a small rebellion, but in this age, it feels like a revolution. He stands still. For the first time in years, there is no music, no news, no glow of blue light, only the faint murmur of wind moving through distant streets. He expected relief, but what comes first is fear. The pause is terrifying. The mind rebels instantly, searching for something to grasp, an alert, a message, a reason to move. Without noise, it panics like a child lost in a crowd. The silence feels too large, too empty, as if it might swallow him whole. But he stays. He closes his eyes and breathes, slow and deliberate. The air enters his lungs like a foreign guest, uncertain but welcome. With each breath, he notices how loud his thoughts truly are, louder than any traffic outside. They rush in, tasks unfinished, words unsaid, moments regretted. The silence has not created them, it has simply revealed them. He realizes then that silence is not the enemy, it is a mirror, and mirrors do not lie. In noise, he could avoid himself. In stillness, he must face himself. The reflection is raw, uncomfortable, but necessary. It shows him how scattered his thoughts have become, how every emotion reacts to invisible strings pulled by others. He sees the subtle slavery of modern life, not physical chains, but constant stimulation. He remembers Napoleon Hill's warning, the majority of people drift through life because they have no definite chief aim. Drifting, he thinks, is what happens when you can't sit still. The city is awakening. Car horns puncture the quiet, birds scatter, vendors lift shutters, yet somehow the noise outside feels distant, unimportant. Something within him has shifted, even if only slightly. He can sense an invisible boundary, forming the thin line between reacting and choosing. All his life he has responded to external rhythm. Now he begins to hear his own. He opens his eyes. The sky is a pale gold, the kind of color that belongs to beginnings. A single thought surfaces. If I can control this moment, I can control any moment. That is the essence of power, not domination over others, but dominion over attention. The mind, left unattended, is like a river in flood. It carries debris, fragments of the past, fears of the future, and emotions borrowed from strangers. It rushes wherever gravity takes it. But when a man decides to pause, he becomes the riverbank, guiding, shaping, containing. Control begins not with action, but with observation. He remembers how, in the past, he filled every empty space. The quiet between conversations, the silence before sleep, the waiting at traffic lights, each pause was patched with noise. He was terrified of stillness because stillness magnified truth. Yet here he stands, and truth begins to whisper. It says, "You have been living on borrowed rhythm." He closes his eyes again, leans on the railing, and listens deeper, not to the city, but to the steady pulse beneath his ribs. For the first time, he hears his breath not as background, but as command. The inhale feels like gathering strength. The exhale, surrender. Each cycle repeats the same law of life: receive, release, renew. The body already knows how to be balanced. It is the mind that forgets. In this pause, he begins to understand sovereignty. To be sovereign is to be the ruler of one's inner kingdom, to decide which thoughts may enter, which emotions may speak, which desires may serve. He realizes how often he has been a subject, not a king, obeying every impulse as if it were law. Discipline, he understands now, is not restriction, it is protection. The pause is the gatekeeper of that kingdom. The fear begins to ease. What once felt like emptiness now feels like space, generous, alive, endless. The longer he stands in silence, the more the noise of his thoughts organizes itself into order. Some thoughts fade, others shine with sudden clarity. It is as if the mind, when deprived of distraction, cleans itself. He watches a pigeon glide past the balcony, wings catching light. Time feels slower or perhaps richer. He realizes how hurried perception has become in the digital age, everything moving too fast for meaning to form. Silence stretches moments wider, giving them weight. He sees the beauty of stillness. It restores gravity to experience. He recalls how great men of focus guarded moments like these. Napoleon Hill spoke of Henry Ford's habit of sitting quietly for long stretches, simply thinking. No phone, no conversation, only deliberate reflection. Hill called this the power of controlled attention. The man wonders how many modern minds have lost that power entirely. The pause, he realizes, is not laziness, it is leadership. Leaders think before they move. Drifters move before they think. The sun now rests fully above the skyline, pouring warmth across his face. With eyes half closed, he notices a subtle truth. Silence has texture. It is not blank, it vibrates softly, like invisible music. When he listens deeper, the silence feels alive, intelligent, responsive. It is not separate from him. It is him, the consciousness beneath the chatter. His mind begins to whisper new sentences, clear and calm. I am not my noise. I am the awareness behind it. The thought feels revolutionary. For years he believed that thinking was who he was, but thinking was only the instrument. Awareness is the musician. He takes another slow breath and allows this realization to sink in. The tension in his shoulders eases, the heartbeat slows. He feels presence, that elusive state that cannot be described, only lived. It is not happiness or excitement. It is something purer, steadier, peace without reason. The mind still tries to intrude small worries, reminders, temptations, but each time he returns to breath. The breath becomes a lighthouse in the fog. Every time he returns, the fog clears faster. He begins to sense that silence, once feared, is actually the natural state of power. It is the condition in which creation begins. Every masterpiece, every invention, every empire was first conceived in such stillness. He remembers the phrase Hill often repeated, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. The key word, he realizes, is conceive. Conception happens in silence, not in chaos. Without the pause, nothing can take root. He stands straighter. His breathing deepens. Something inside him solidifies a decision, quiet but irreversible. He will practice this pause daily, not as escape but as training. He will meet the silence each morning until it stops feeling foreign and starts feeling like home. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours. Time behaves differently when you stop measuring it. He looks again at the city. People are now fully awake, rushing, calling, honking, working. The noise resumes its dominion over most. But for him, the day has already been won. He carries within him a pocket of stillness that the world cannot touch. He walks back inside. The phone remains on the table, still silent. He touches it, then withdraws his hand. He smiles not from resistance, but from recognition. Power, he understands, is not in possession, it is in permission. He chooses when to engage, when to pause. The device has not changed, but the master has. He sits down at his desk and writes a single sentence. In my stillness, I find direction. The words feel heavier than any motivational quote he has read. They are not advice, they are command. Each letter seems to pulse with certainty, a personal decree of sovereignty. He reads it aloud once, slowly. The sound of his voice in the quiet room feels sacred, like an oath spoken before an unseen council. He begins to notice the subtle order that silence creates. His thoughts, once chaotic, now line up like soldiers awaiting instruction. Ideas that were buried beneath distraction begin to rise, not random, but purposeful. The brain, freed from constant reaction, starts to generate clarity on its own. He understands now that focus is not forced. It emerges naturally when noise is removed. He thinks about how this single morning could change his entire life. If repeated, 5 minutes of pause could rewire years of habit. Hill called such practices mind discipline, and mind discipline, he wrote, is the foundation of success. The man realizes the power of a small ritual done consistently, a pause before the day claims him, a pause before emotions decide for him. The pause is not the absence of activity. It is the calibration of purpose. He imagines the future, meetings where he listens before reacting, conversations where silence becomes influence, decisions made from centered awareness instead of panic. He sees that silence is not weakness, it is command disguised as calm. Those who master the pause appear slower to others, but they move from deeper intelligence. They do not waste energy correcting mistakes born of haste. He feels gratitude, not the loud gratitude of affirmation videos, but the quiet kind that hums in the chest. Gratitude for breath, for awareness, for another chance to begin differently. He realizes that the pause is the birthplace of gratitude. Only when you stop do you see what has always been given. The clock ticks softly, the sun climbs higher, the day calls again work, responsibilities, life, but he now knows he can meet them differently. The pause will travel with him. It will live between words, between breaths, between choices. It will remind him that clarity is never lost. It is only buried under noise. He stands and takes one last look at the morning. The balcony glows with golden light. He breathes deeply and feels the rhythm of the universe within him, slow, steady, patient. He senses that true mastery is not about forcing outcomes, but aligning with this rhythm. The pause is how you tune yourself to that frequency. He whispers once more, almost as prayer. In my stillness, I find direction. The words echo inward, settling into the subconscious like seeds. They will grow in silence, watered by repetition and discipline. One day they will bloom as calm confidence in moments of chaos. He picks up his phone at last, unlocks it, and sees the flood of notifications, waiting messages, updates, temptations. He does not rush to clear them. Instead, he smiles again, knowing he has already chosen the tone of his day. The world can wait 5 minutes for a man who commands his mind. He walks toward the shower, every step unhurried, deliberate. The city's noise grows behind him, but within, the silence remains like a steady flame. He understands now that peace is not a reward, it is a skill. And like any skill, it is mastered through practice, one pause at a time. As the water begins to fall, he closes his eyes and listens not to the splash or the hum of pipes, but to the rhythm of his own breathing, blending with it. The body, the mind, the moment, all synchronized in quiet harmony. For the first time in a long while, he is not chasing the day, he is leading it. Outside, life continues at its frantic pace. But inside, the man has discovered the hidden chamber where power sleeps. In that chamber, there are no notifications, no comparisons, no noise. Only awareness, waiting patiently for command. He has found it the moment of pause, and within it, the doorway to everything that matters. The candle's flame wavers gently, breathing with the room. The air hums with a soft tension, not from sound, but from stillness. Outside, the city is sleeping, but not silent. Distant echoes of engines hum in the streets, a reminder that the world is always moving, yet inside this room, the movement has stopped. The noise has been exiled. He sits cross-legged on the floor, the wooden boards cool beneath him, eyes closed, breath steady. There is no music, no distraction, no voice narrating his thoughts. Only silence, thick, patient, endless. It feels like standing at the edge of an ocean you cannot see, an expanse so vast it both comforts and intimidates. For the first few minutes, his mind fights. Thoughts rush in like waves, unfinished work, unanswered messages, the memory of someone's voice, a headline, a worry, an old desire. They collide, dissolve, reform. Silence exposes everything that noise once buried. He realizes how much of his inner world has been shaped not by choice, but by constant input. But the candle keeps burning. The air does not move. The silence does not flinch. And slowly the waves of thought begin to lose strength. Silence, he begins to understand, is not an absence, it is an amplifier. It magnifies what truly matters and dissolves everything that doesn't. In noise, everything looks equal. The mind cannot distinguish signal from static, truth from distraction, desire from necessity. But in silence, the false things fade on their own. What remains is real, raw, undeniable. Napoleon Hill once called silence the workshop of the soul. It is here, in this invisible chamber of stillness, that the raw material of thought becomes form. Every invention, every dream, every plan of destiny begins in this unseen laboratory. Hill wrote that the subconscious mind is the connecting link between the finite and the infinite, the part of us that communicates with the higher intelligence of the universe. But that communication cannot occur through noise. The subconscious is like a clear lake. Throw stones of distraction into it, and the reflection vanishes. Let it grow still, and it mirrors heaven perfectly. He feels that truth within his body. The longer he remains silent, the more he senses a new kind of listening, not through his ears, but through his awareness. The body begins to hum, not audibly, but energetically. There is order beneath the chaos, rhythm beneath the quiet. The candle crackles, and in that tiny sound he hears the entire law of silence revealed. Stillness is strength under control. The law of silence is one of the oldest spiritual technologies known to man. Every sage, every prophet, every inventor who touched the extraordinary did so through stillness. They retreated not to escape the world, but to hear the world at a higher frequency. Jesus withdrew into the desert before his ministry. Buddha sat beneath the tree in wordless contemplation. Tesla walked alone in the park, imagining entire machines in his mind. These were not acts of escape, they were acts of command. The man realizes now that he has spent most of his life speaking too soon, answering before understanding, reacting before observing, expressing before feeling. He has wasted his creative energy on the external, forgetting that true power is cultivated internally first. In silence, power condenses. In noise, it disperses. When you are silent, you are not empty, you are charging. He opens his eyes briefly. The candlelight paints long shadows on the wall. Each flicker feels like a heartbeat of time itself. He studies the flame, narrow at the base, widening as it rises, then tapering again into a sharp, luminous point. That, he thinks, is the shape of focus. He closes his eyes again. In this silence, ideas begin to surface not from thought, but from knowing. One appears as an image, another as a sentence, another as a sudden understanding of something he had been struggling with for days. There is no effort, no planning. The silence is delivering. This is what Hill meant when he said, "When you are ready to receive, the information will present itself." Readiness is not achieved through study alone, but through stillness, because silence aligns you with the intelligence that already knows. He smiles slightly, sensing the paradox. The quieter he becomes, the more he hears. The less he tries to think, the more truth arrives. He begins to breathe slower. The noise in his head has softened to a low hum, like a machine idling far away. What remains now is awareness, bright, calm, alert. He remembers a quote he once read, "The one who owns silence owns himself." Now, for the first time, it feels real. To own silence is to own your energy, your direction, your frequency. It means you are no longer a slave to reaction. You speak only when words are stronger than silence. You act only when movement is more powerful than stillness. He whispers softly, "Silence is the architect of strength." Outside, the first light of dawn touches the buildings. The city begins to stretch awake. He can sense the coming rush of motion, cars, voices, footsteps, but the anticipation no longer disturbs him. There is peace in preparation. He recalls something Hill wrote in Think and Grow Rich. The greatest achievements were created first in the mind, and then translated into action through persistence. The mind, he realizes, cannot create clearly without silence. The silence is the blueprint, the mind, the architect, and action, the builder. He thinks of how many times he has acted from impatience, sending messages too quickly, making decisions from emotion, speaking when listening would have been wiser. Each time he diluted his own strength. Silence teaches compression, the art of holding energy until it becomes precise. He begins to see the law operating everywhere. A bow must be drawn backward before it releases an arrow. A wave retreats before it strikes the shore. A breath must be inhaled before it can be exhaled. Creation always begins with contraction. Silence is that sacred contraction, the drawing inward before the expansion outward. He whispers to himself, "In silence I gather my force." He begins to imagine his life under this new law. Each morning before the world awakes, he will enter this workshop of the soul, 5 minutes of unbroken quiet. He will not call it meditation, he will call it alignment. Because he is not escaping life, he is commanding it. He envisions himself sitting like this before every important action, before meetings, before conversations, before decisions. He sees how silence becomes strategy. The man who pauses before speaking gains leverage. The one who listens before answering gains insight. The one who silences the noise within before confronting the world outside moves like a king, deliberate, unshaken, unstoppable. The candle flickers again. The wax has melted into a small pool. He realizes how similar it is to the human mind. Constant flame above, still pool below. The flame dances thoughts, emotions, movement, but the pool reflects. Without the pool, the flame would consume itself too quickly. He feels gratitude rising, not the excitement of achievement, but the reverence of awareness. He is grateful that silence is free, that no one can sell it or take it away. It waits for anyone willing to stop long enough to hear it. He understands now why most people avoid it. Silence reveals truth, and truth demands change. In noise, you can hide behind distractions. In silence, there is nowhere to hide. The mask falls. The excuses dissolve. What remains is responsibility, the knowing that your life is your own creation. He smiles faintly again. Responsibility is not a burden. It is power disguised. The moment you admit you are the creator, you regain authorship over your story. And silence is the blank page where that authorship begins each day. The law of silence also governs energy. He thinks of how often people waste their vitality on words that do not need to be spoken, defending themselves, proving themselves, complaining, gossiping, explaining. Every unnecessary word is a leak in the vessel of the mind. Every impulsive reaction is a spark lost to friction. He realizes why ancient masters practiced muna, sacred silence, not as punishment but as preservation. They understood that energy conserved becomes wisdom, that when you stop scattering your power outward, it accumulates inward and transforms into magnetism. He feels that magnetism, now subtle but growing, it is not arrogance, it is certainty. The certainty that comes from being rooted, unshaken, in command of one's frequency. He thinks of Hill's line, "A quiet mind is able to hear intuition over fear." Yes, intuition, that higher guidance, does not shout, it whispers. Only a quiet mind can catch its signal. He decides to test this truth. He asks silently, "What do I need to know right now?" The answer comes, not as words, but as a feeling calm clarity about a decision he has been postponing. He senses exactly what must be done, though no logic explains it. He smiles. This is the voice Hill described, the infinite intelligence communicating through the subconscious. The candle flame shortens. Dawn fills the room. He realizes he has been sitting longer than planned. But time, within silence, loses its grip. What felt like minutes was nearly an hour. Yet he feels rested, recharged, renewed, as if the silence itself has cleaned his spirit. He opens his eyes fully. The world looks different, sharper, deeper, almost sacred. He can see the texture of light, the breath of air, the subtle pulse of life in everything. This heightened perception, he realizes, is not new. It has always been there. Silence simply removed the static. He stands slowly, stretches, and gazes out the window. The city is alive again, but he no longer feels its chaos as pressure. The sounds now blend into harmony. He realizes something profound. When you are silent within, the world outside becomes music. The noise of life is not your enemy. It is your orchestra. But you must first learn to be the conductor, and the baton of the conductor is silence. He walks to the table, takes his journal, and writes a single line in clear handwriting. "Silence is my signal to the infinite." He underlines it twice. Then he adds another. "When I am silent, I become a vessel for wisdom, not a victim of noise." He feels a quiet pride, not the kind that seeks praise, but the kind that grows from understanding. He knows this discipline will not be easy. The world will always tempt him back into chaos. But now he has a law to follow, a practice to return to. He thinks again of Napoleon Hill's words that every mind is both a transmitter and a receiver. The silence is the tuning dial. When you control it, you align with frequencies that others cannot perceive. Ideas, opportunities, people, they begin to appear not by chance, but by resonance. He imagines his future self months from now, sitting in a meeting, calm while others rush, walking through chaos, composed while others panic, building ideas in solitude that others mistake for luck. All of it will trace back to this moment, this candle, this silence, this decision. He blows out the flame. The smoke curls upward, then vanishes. The scent lingers faint, grounding, alive. As he stands in the soft light of morning, he whispers a final truth to himself, one that feels older than words. He who commands silence commands creation. He smiles. He walks toward the door, not hurried, not hesitant, but balanced. He can already feel the rhythm of the day trying to pull him, but he knows now that he is the one setting the tempo. The law of silence has given him something far more valuable than peace. It has given him precision. Each word he speaks today will carry weight. Each action will stem from clarity. Each decision will echo power, because it was forged in the workshop of stillness. Outside, the world hums, unaware that somewhere in its endless noise, one man has stepped out of the frequency of chaos and into the wavelength of mastery. And as he walks into his day, the words of Napoleon Hill echo gently, like a compass pointing inward. When your mind is calm, you are in touch with the source of power that moves the universe. The candle is gone. The silence remains. And the man reborn in it begins his day not as a seeker, but as a commander of thought. The ink glides across paper like a quiet oath. The room is still except for the slow ticking of a clock, each second announcing the birth of a new decision. On the desk lies one line simple, unadorned, absolute. Today I command my focus. He stares at the words as though they were carved into stone. Outside, the city hums with 1,000 competing frequencies, each one calling for a fragment of his mind. But in this moment, he has drawn a boundary. He has declared territory. That sentence is the flag planted in the chaos of thought. A thin beam of sunlight breaks through the blinds and lands upon the page, illuminating the ink until it gleams like molten gold. The timing feels deliberate, as if the universe itself is acknowledging the vow. He whispers, "Where my focus goes, power grows." The words fall softly, yet they vibrate through him like a drumbeat beneath calm water. Energy follows attention. Napoleon Hill wrote that every thought is a seed, and every seed obeys the soil of attention. Whatever you continually notice becomes your reality. The law is simple, impartial, and merciless. Focus on fear, and fear expands. Focus on possibility, and doors appear where walls once stood. He thinks of his own life, the projects half finished, the ideas abandoned, the countless beginnings that dissolved not from lack of talent, but from divided attention. The mind, he realizes, is like sunlight. Unfocused, it warms nothing. Concentrated, it burns through steel. He lifts his gaze from the page and lets his eyes rest on the shaft of light. Dust particles dance inside it like miniature worlds. That's how my thoughts behave, he thinks. Endless specks floating through a single beam. The secret is not to chase every particle, but to guard the beam itself. Attention is currency. Every moment the world is bidding for it. Advertisers, screens, gossip, urgency. Whoever wins your attention controls your energy, your time, your destiny. To command attention is to reclaim sovereignty. He remembers how easily he once surrendered it. He had treated focus like air, free, infinite, taken for granted. But now he sees it for what it is, oxygen for creation. Without it, even genius suffocates. The law of attention is not mystical, it is mechanical. The mind works exactly as designed. It expands whatever it repeatedly examines. Every complaint strengthens what you dislike. Every praise multiplies what you value. The universe is a faithful echo, returning whatever signal you send with conviction. He begins to list, silently, the signals he has been broadcasting: doubt, worry, comparison, and realizes that none of them are neutral. Each thought has been an order sent to an obedient universe. Focus, he thinks, is prayer without words. He closes his eyes. The morning light warms his face. He listens to the subtle rhythm of his breath, steady as a metronome. Within that rhythm, he feels a truth. Attention is not given, it is trained. The same way a muscle strengthens through resistance, focus strengthens through refusal. Refusal to be pulled, to be scattered, to be entertained by mediocrity. He remembers Hill's command. You must have a definiteness of purpose. That purpose is the North Star of attention. Without it, the mind becomes a crowded market of unfinished thoughts, each one shouting louder than the last. He sees now why most people never reach mastery. They are not weak, they are simply unfocused. They start the day as 1,000 open tabs, hoping productivity will emerge from chaos. But power requires direction. The sun cannot rise in every sky at once. He looks again at his sentence. Today I command my focus. It feels heavier now, charged. A command, not a wish. The word command implies discipline, authority, leadership over the inner army of thoughts. He begins to imagine his mind as a vast kingdom. Thoughts are citizens. Some are noble, others thieves. For years he allowed them to wander unchecked, stealing energy, creating noise. But under the law of attention, the king returns to his throne. The gates close. The guards awaken. Only those thoughts that serve the higher vision may enter. He takes a deep breath and feels his shoulders straighten. There is power in visualization, Hill taught. The subconscious responds to images more than logic. So he imagines his attention as a golden spotlight. Wherever it moves, life blossoms. Wherever it withdraws, decay begins. The choice of direction becomes sacred. He tests this law at once. He focuses on gratitude, on the simple miracle of breath. Within seconds, a warmth spreads through his chest. Then he focuses on anxiety, on a problem waiting at work. Instantly, the warmth tightens into tension. Nothing external changed. Only the beam moved. He laughs quietly. The experiment is complete. The law is proven. Focus is not something you find, it is something you build. Each act of attention is a brick. Each moment of distraction is erosion. You construct your reality one focus at a time. He recalls Hill's observation that most people drift because they never choose a major purpose. They live by reaction, not by design. Reaction scatters energy outward. Design channels it inward. To design life, you must first design thought. He writes another line in the journal. One goal, one emotion, one sentence. He underlines it 3 times. This, he realizes, is the daily ritual of command. Choose one clear intention each morning. Feel one dominant emotion that supports it and express it in one sentence that can be remembered through the day. Simplicity is not weakness, it is mastery, refined. He closes his eyes and asks himself, what is my one goal today? The answer arises effortlessly. To finish with excellence what I begin. He writes it down. Then he chooses the emotion, calm determination. The sentence completes itself. I move through this day with calm determination. He repeats it aloud until his voice aligns with conviction. The energy in the room changes. The sunlight deepens. His heartbeat steadies. The scattered mind feels assembled again, like soldiers falling into formation. He remembers a story Hill told about Charles M. Schwab, who built his empire by practicing single-minded concentration on one task at a time. When asked for his secret, Schwab said he ended each day by writing the 6 most important things for tomorrow, then did the first one until it was finished. That simple discipline turned focus into fortune. He sees how this principle applies beyond business. The law of attention is universal. It governs wealth, relationships, creativity, peace. Whatever you attend to with faith becomes magnetic. What you ignore with indifference eventually fades from your field. He thinks of a plant on the windowsill, wilted from neglect. All it needs is light and care. The mind is the same. Starve it of intentional focus, and weeds of anxiety grow wild. Feed it daily light, and it flourishes. The clock ticks on. The morning advances. He stands and stretches, still holding the vibration of purpose. Today will bring distractions. Of course, it always does, but he is ready. Distractions, he now understands, are not enemies. They are weight for training. Each time he notices and returns, focus strengthens. The warrior of attention grows sharper through battle. He decides to test himself. He turns on the phone. Notifications explode across the screen, messages, updates, digital noise. But instead of diving in, he practices the law. Pause, breathe, choose. He opens only what serves his one goal. The rest waits. The urge to react fades quicker than expected. Power, he realizes, is not the ability to do everything. It is the discipline to do only what matters. Hill wrote, concentration upon a single idea and its accomplishment is the most important essential to success. He repeats that line mentally as armor. As the day unfolds, he notices the world differently. People rush without direction. Conversations scatter into trivialities. Minds flicker like unstable flames. Yet amidst it, he moves slower, calmer, deliberate. He is not lost in the river. He has become the current. He begins to sense a rhythm, attention, energy results, faith stronger attention. The cycle feeds itself. Success is not luck. It is sustained focus meeting time. Every seed germinates at the exact speed of consistent attention. He stops at a cafe to write again. On a napkin, he sketches a triangle. Top, purpose. Base, attention. Body, energy. He realizes that attention fuels energy and energy expresses purpose. Without attention, even purpose starves. He sits quietly, watching people check their phones, laugh, scroll, sigh. He is not judging, he is learning. The law of attention operates flawlessly, but most are unconscious of it. They feed what they dislike and wonder why it grows. They rehearse failure in thought and call it caution. They revisit pain and call it memory. Attention keeps paying the bills of suffering. He resolves to spend his attention differently from now on, only on what he wishes to multiply. Afternoon, the sunlight shifts gentler now. He returns home, feeling accomplished not because of volume, but because of precision. Each task completed carried the calm rhythm of command. The mind remained tethered to the single intention set that morning. Distractions appeared, but none survived awareness. He pours water into a glass and watches the ripples settle. Focus is like this, he thinks. Disturbance fades when you stop stirring. The clearer the surface, the more light it reflects. He remembers a powerful line from Hill. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent benefit. The seed is invisible until attention finds it. Focus turns adversity into advantage by extracting meaning from pain. Even suffering can serve when observed instead of resisted. He sits again at the desk as evening colors wash through the room. The journal waits, open to the same page. He reads his morning vow aloud. Today I command my focus. He smiles. It no longer feels like effort. It feels like identity. He writes a reflection. Focus is faith translated into discipline. Attention is the hand through which the soul shapes matter. When I give something my focus, I give it life. He closes the journal gently. The act feels ceremonial, as though sealing a contract between mind and universe. The candle from yesterday sits nearby, unlit. He strikes a match and watches the flame rise. Light, he notices, behaves like attention. It expands until it meets resistance. Remove distraction, and it illuminates endlessly. He whispers again, where my focus goes, power grows. The words now sound less like affirmation and more like law unchanging, universal, absolute. He imagines tomorrow, a new goal, a new sentence, another chance to refine the beam. Day by day, he will narrow it until his thoughts cut like a laser through uncertainty. With time, the world will call it talent, but he will know it was attention all along. He leans back, watching the flame sway. The air feels alive, charged with intent. He understands now that the greatest miracle is not creation, it is concentration. Creation is automatic once attention holds steady long enough. He breathes, smiles, and lets the silence of mastery settle once more. Evening reflection. The city outside flickers with lights, windows, cars, advertisements, all competing for the gaze of passing minds. He looks at them without judgment, then turns away. His focus is his fortune, and he has learned to spend it wisely. The final thought before sleep drifts through him like a whisper from Hill himself. The successful man keeps his mind at peace and his attention upon his goal. He smiles into the darkness, the words echoing through the quiet chambers of a disciplined mind. And as dreams begin to form, a single phrase hums like a pulse beneath consciousness, steady, unwavering, eternal. Where my focus goes, power grows. He sits at a cafe surrounded by noise phones ringing. People talking, yet his eyes remain fixed on a single line in his notebook. The cafe hums with the rhythm of distraction. Cups clink, laughter ripples. The hiss of steaming milk punctuates fragments of conversation. To the casual observer, he appears still, almost detached, a man lost in thought while the world rushes past him. But he is not lost. He is anchored, tethered to a single line written across his page, a quiet flame burning in the midst of commotion. The line reads, I do not chase distraction, I command direction. His eyes stay fixed upon it as though every sound, every movement around him is being tested against this one law. He breathes calmly, unshaken, aware that this moment, this very practice of stillness amidst noise, is the true battlefield of mastery. Focus, he has learned, is not about addition. It is about elimination. It is not what you do that defines you, it is what you refuse to do. Every yes carries weight. Each one demands 1,000 no's hidden behind it. Every time you say yes to something trivial, you say no to something vital. Most people never understand this exchange. They spend their energy chasing every invitation, every notification, every passing thought, until their life becomes an unending negotiation with noise. But today, he practices a rarer art, the law of exclusion. He watches people move around him, some laughing into their phones, others lost in screens, typing furiously. Everyone is busy, yet few seem productive. They are consuming motion as proof of meaning, mistaking busyness for purpose. The noise outside mirrors the noise within. He can see it in their eyes. The anxious flicker of divided attention, the hunger to be everywhere, to know everything, to miss nothing. He knows that hunger well. It ruled him once. But the law of exclusion taught him that nothing weakens the soul faster than trying to hold the entire world in your mind. You were not designed to carry everything, you were designed to carry what matters. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Concentration is the secret of strength, but concentration is impossible without elimination. The mind must be purified of the unnecessary before it can become powerful." He glances at his reflection in the cafe window. Behind him, life continues motion without meaning. Inside, he feels the strange calm of selectivity, the discipline to let go of 99 things for the sake of one. That one thing, he realizes, is his purpose. The waitress brings coffee. He thanks her with a quiet nod, eyes still resting on his notebook. The aroma rises, rich and grounding. Around him, the world vibrates at full speed, yet his mind remains a lake, undisturbed. Every sip is a small act of defiance against chaos, proof that stillness can exist anywhere if you decide it must. He recalls the ancient saying, "When you chase 2 rabbits, you catch none." The law of exclusion is this truth, expanded into every corner of life. The universe does not reward multitasking, it rewards devotion. Every master artist, thinker, creator became great not by doing more, but by cutting away what did not belong. He thinks of Hill's timeless counsel. A man's success is measured by the number of things he can afford to let alone. To let alone, what a powerful phrase. To leave untouched the endless temptations that promise quick validation but steal lasting power. He writes in his notebook again slowly. Every no strengthens my yes. The law of exclusion means you must deliberately choose what not to entertain: gossip, doubt, comparison, unnecessary urgency. These are the termites of destiny. They eat the foundation quietly. By the time most people realize what has weakened them, their structure has already collapsed. He thinks of all the times he allowed gossip to rent space in his mind, or comparison to poison his progress. The energy lost to these habits was invisible, yet immeasurable. He breathes deeply and feels a quiet vow forming. He will no longer feed what drains him. From now on, he will be ruthless with his attention, not cruel, but clear. He will say no, not with anger, but with awareness. Every refusal will become an offering to his higher aim. Outside the window, a man argues loudly into his phone. The sound cuts through the air, demanding reaction. He feels the impulse to look, to engage, to comment, but he doesn't. Instead, he smiles slightly, returning his eyes to the page. That small act, that micro moment of choice, is victory. Every time you say no, you make space for greatness. Every time you refuse to react, you train your nervous system to stay sovereign. He recalls Hill's teaching. The mind attracts that which it dwells upon. This law is neutral, like gravity. Dwell on anger, and more reasons to be angry appear. Dwell on gratitude, and more blessings unfold. But the ability to dwell intentionally requires exclusion, the courage to stop feeding mental parasites. He writes again, "Attention is power, reaction is weakness." He studies the words and lets them sink. Power is never in reaction. The moment you react, you surrender control. But the one who pauses, the one who chooses where to aim his awareness, that person is free. Freedom, he realizes, has nothing to do with doing everything you want. True freedom is the ability to ignore what doesn't deserve your energy. It is the skill of conserving your inner fire for battles that matter. He takes another sip of coffee and watches the steam curl upward, spiraling into nothing. That's what wasted energy looks like. He thinks beautiful for a moment, then gone. He reflects on his own journey. For years, he chased approval from peers, from society, from invisible audiences online. He spent hours curating an image rather than cultivating substance. He sought validation from people who couldn't even validate themselves. And each time he sought it, he gave away a piece of his power. Now, under the law of exclusion, he has learned to detach from applause and criticism alike. Both are noise disguised as feedback. Hill said, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it." Silence, he realizes, is more powerful than announcement. To act quietly is to move from authority, not insecurity. He writes a new mantra in his journal. "I am not available for anything that weakens me." It is more than a sentence, it is a filter. Every choice, every invitation, every thought must now pass through it. The law of exclusion is also the law of peace. Peace is not found, it is created by subtraction. He looks inward and imagines his mind as a room. Each distraction, each toxic attachment, each pointless worry is a piece of clutter. The room once felt suffocating, but now each no he speaks removes an item. With every elimination, air returns, light enters, space expands. He begins to notice how exclusion feels lighter, cleaner, freer. The fewer things he clings to, the more clearly he sees the few that truly matter. Simplicity, he understands now, is not poverty. It is wealth with direction. He glances again at the other customers, noticing their hurried gestures. Everyone is reaching outward, searching for more. But he sits still, realizing that mastery is not expansion, it is refinement. The sculptor's genius is not in what he adds to the marble, but in what he removes. He remembers Hill's phrase, "There is no such thing as something for nothing." Every yes extracts a cost, time, emotion, energy. The wise man measures that cost before he commits. He closes his notebook and sits back, watching sunlight drift across the table. The cafe's noise softens, not because it has lessened, but because his awareness has withdrawn from it. The external remains unchanged, the internal has evolved. He thinks about the nervous system, how every reaction creates chemical storms. Adrenaline, cortisol, exhaustion. The body cannot distinguish between a real threat and a meaningless irritation. By saying no to unnecessary urgency, he is not just protecting time, he is healing biology. The calm mind becomes the healthy body, the disciplined focus becomes the unbreakable spirit. He realizes that discipline is not harsh, it is holy. The saints, the inventors, the builders of empires all shared this quiet reverence for structure. They understood that limitation is not punishment, it is channeling. Water only gains force when confined by the riverbank. Light only cuts through darkness when focused through a lens. He whispers, "Discipline is devotion." The words resonate through him like a bell. Devotion not to control, but to purpose. He opens the notebook one last time and draws 2 columns. On the left, he writes, "Noise." On the right, "Nourishment." Under noise, he lists gossip, doubt, envy, urgency, unnecessary debate, digital distraction. Under nourishment, he writes, silence, gratitude, study, solitude, purpose, excellence. He studies the 2 lists carefully. The left side steals power invisibly, the right multiplies it silently. And then he sees the truth. Life is not decided by what's added to these lists, but by which one you choose to feed each day. He draws a line between them and writes at the top, "Every day I must choose my diet of thought." The mind consumes whatever you serve it. Garbage in, chaos out, clarity in, creation out. It's that simple. The cafe begins to empty. Chairs scrape. The rhythm of the day shifts. He gathers his notebook and stands, feeling grounded. The law of exclusion is no longer theory, it's muscle memory. Every step he takes is chosen. Every thought he keeps is deliberate. Every no he utters builds invisible walls of power around his purpose. As he walks toward the door, someone calls his name, a friend from years past, loud, eager, pulling him toward conversation. For a brief second, he feels the tug of old habits, the reflex to engage, to please, to entertain. Then he remembers his vow. He smiles warmly, places a hand on his friend's shoulder, and says gently, "I'll catch up later. I have something I must finish." It's not rejection, it's alignment. He turns and walks into the sunlight, each step echoing quiet authority. Outside, the world feels wider, cleaner. The noise no longer presses in, it flows around him like wind. He can hear the rhythm of his own footsteps above everything else. The power of no has refined his hearing. It has made room for the voice of intuition that was buried beneath others' expectations. He pauses at a street corner and looks up at the sky, vast, blue, unbothered. In that expanse, he feels the echo of every great truth he has learned so far. Silence revealed power. Attention focused it. Exclusion now protects it. He takes a deep breath, letting the air fill him with calm precision. The words form naturally, a quiet prayer to his higher self. I do not chase distraction, I command direction. And with that, he walks forward, not hurried, not reactive, but sovereign. Behind him, the noise continues. Ahead of him, the path is clear. The world has not changed, but he has. Because the man who masters exclusion no longer seeks permission to focus, he becomes focus itself. Night again. The same man sits beneath one desk lamp, vision board before him, distractions locked away. The room is a small island of light in an ocean of darkness. The desk lamp burns like a miniature sun, its glow falling upon a vision board layered with fragments of dreams, words, sketches, photographs, and handwritten goals pinned in deliberate symmetry. Beyond the window, the city murmurs in the distance. But here, inside this quiet fortress, the only sound is the scratch of a pencil and the steady rhythm of breathing. He has locked away every distraction. No phone, no music, no noise. It feels monastic, sacred, a private temple built for one purpose. On the wall before him hangs a single sentence scrawled in bold letters. My aim is one, my mind is steady, my outcome is certain. He repeats it silently until it begins to pulse with life. The words are more than affirmation, they are ignition. Every legend you admire mastered one aim before chasing many. Edison, Ford, Carnegie Hill's immortal examples were not born with extraordinary intelligence, they were consumed by extraordinary direction. They held a single vision so completely that the universe had no choice but to align around it. He thinks of them now. Edison in his laboratory, eyes bloodshot, chasing the filament that would birth light itself. Ford, obsessed with making the automobile affordable for every family. Carnegie, building an empire of steel by mastering one principle, efficiency. None were scattered. None diluted their energy across endless pursuits. They chose one great mission and gave it everything. A bow cannot hit multiple targets at once. When the archer divides his attention, he wounds the air and calls it effort. Only when his aim is singular does the arrow find its mark. He looks at his own life, at the years he spent trying to be everything at once. Every opportunity seemed important, every invitation irresistible. He tried to please everyone, to prove himself in every arena, and in doing so, he built momentum in every direction except forward. He had become a kaleidoscope of unfinished beginnings. But tonight, under this solitary light, something has changed. The chaos has narrowed into clarity. He no longer craves to be everywhere. He desires to be effective somewhere. He writes across the page in deliberate strokes. One mission, one identity, one outcome. The words settle in his mind like pillars setting into stone. The law of single aim is not about obsession for its own sake. It is about precision. The universe, Hill taught, is not random, it is obedient. But it responds only to clear commands. A mind divided sends mixed signals, and a mixed signal returns mixed results. He remembers Hill's timeless decree. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Conceive and believe, two verbs, one focus. When the mind conceives a single purpose and feeds it daily with faith, imagination becomes architecture. He studies the images on his vision board not as decoration, but as a contract with destiny. Each picture is a promise. Each goal is a direction, not a distraction. He traces them with his finger, anchoring them into awareness. The repetition feels ritualistic, almost sacred. He senses the invisible machinery of the subconscious stirring beneath the surface, reorganizing reality to match the blueprint in front of him. This, he realizes, is the real power of faith, not blind belief, but directed certainty. The night deepens. The lamp's circle of light feels smaller now, but brighter. Focus has that effect. It narrows vision, yet multiplies power. He recalls how, in earlier chapters of his life, he mistook intensity for exhaustion. He thought single-mindedness would make life smaller. But now he sees the paradox. The narrower the focus, the wider the results. A river becomes mighty only when its waters are forced through a channel. The same principle governs human potential. He leans back and breathes, feeling both calm and electric. He can sense the law of single aim, organizing his mind into alignment like magnets snapping into place. Doubt begins to lose its grip. Indecision fades. There is only direction now. He whispers softly, "My energy serves one master purpose." He remembers something Hill wrote in Think and Grow Rich. One must know what one wants and be determined to get it. The clarity of desire is the starting gun of destiny. Without it, all effort is random motion. He begins to recall the patterns of his past. Each time he failed, it was never from lack of effort, it was from lack of aim. He had been shooting arrows into fog, hoping something would land. But now he understands. The target must exist first within. Clear as daylight, unwavering as faith. He stares at the word vision pinned in the center of the board. Beneath it, a single image, the life he is building. He studies it until every detail burns into his memory. The place, the feeling, the faces, the work, the calm. He does not simply look at it, he steps into it mentally. The room around him fades. For a few heartbeats, the dream becomes real. He has entered what Hill called the sixth sense, the mental faculty that communicates directly with infinite intelligence. It is activated not by chance, but by concentration. The law of single aim is its doorway. He begins to write again. My mind is a lens. Every thought must pass through its center. I aim it, and reality bends accordingly. The words feel alive, as though the pen itself is charged with intention. He reads them aloud. The sound echoes softly through the room, affirming the vibration of commitment. Hill's disciples understood this principle. They did not scatter their strength across dozens of ventures. They built one empire at a time, then replicated the pattern. The law of single aim demands patience, but it rewards with power that compounds. He reflects on modern life, the endless temptation to diversify attention, projects, screens, opinions, desires. Society celebrates multitasking, but he knows now that multitasking is simply multi-leaking. Each leak drains clarity, and clarity is the root of all accomplishment. He decides tonight that his energy will become a monolith, solid, directed, unstoppable. He stands and walks to the window. The city lights shimmer like constellations of distraction, each one calling, "Look here, try this, become that." He smiles quietly. Once, those lights pulled him in every direction. Now, they look like stars in a night sky he's already mapped. He no longer chases them. He navigates by one. Purpose, he understands, is not found. It is forged through repetition. Every day he visualizes the same end until the mind treats it as fact. The subconscious, loyal and literal, begins to reorganize his habits, choices, and opportunities to fit the image impressed upon it. This is not mysticism, it is law. Hill proved it a century ago. The man who holds one definite aim influences unseen forces that conspire in his favor. Life rearranges itself to match his clarity. He turns from the window, sits again beneath the lamp, and begins a new entry in his journal titled, My One Aim. He writes slowly, deliberately. I will master my craft until my work becomes art. I will channel every distraction into discipline, every weakness into repetition. I will not scatter my energy across half-built dreams. My purpose is not a hobby, it is my inheritance. When he finishes, he signs his initials beneath it as though signing a contract with his higher self. The act feels final, not restrictive, but liberating. The burden of choice dissolves. There is peace in knowing that every action now serves one mission. He feels the same satisfaction a compass must feel when it finds north. Hours pass unnoticed. He studies, plans, visualizes. The lamp hums faintly. The air feels dense with concentration. At times his mind wanders, but he brings it back gently, persistently. Return strengthens focus. Discipline, he realizes, is not punishment. It is returning, again and again, to the single aim. Outside, the night deepens into silence. He can sense the world sleeping, but inside, his spirit is awake. He feels aligned with something vast, the creative pulse of existence itself. The law of single aim has tuned him to the same frequency as purpose. He whispers one more time, "My aim is one, my mind is steady, my outcome is certain." The words no longer sound like hope, they sound like law. He reflects on how this principle will guide every area of his life: relationships, work, health, spirituality, all governed by one central direction. Not separation, but integration. When the aim is singular, every action becomes supportive. The diet fuels the work honors the body sustains the mind expands the purpose. Harmony replaces struggle. He smiles, remembering Hill's image of the master mind, the alignment of two or more minds toward a definite purpose. He realizes now that even before gathering allies, he must first unite the scattered fragments of his own mind. Single aim begins with internal unity. He feels a surge of gratitude. Focus is freedom. To wake each day knowing exactly where to aim is to live beyond confusion. The world's noise still exists, but it no longer competes. He has selected his frequency. The lamp flickers slightly, and he notices the wax of the candle nearby nearly melted to glass. He takes it as a symbol. Even fire, when contained, gives more light. Passion without direction burns out. Passion with purpose illuminates. He closes his journal and sits back, letting the silence settle around him. The body relaxes, but the mind remains sharp. It feels like standing on a mountain peak, narrow but elevated. He understands now why mediocrity fears extremes. Extremes expose truth. The world will call the focused man obsessed, but it will later call him visionary. Let them talk. Extremes build empires. Mediocrity builds excuses. He repeats it with quiet conviction. Let the world call me extreme, that's fine. Every revolution in history began with someone the world called unreasonable. He thinks again of Hill's mentors, men who faced ridicule for their focus. Edison's experiments mocked, Ford's vision dismissed, Carnegie's efficiency criticized, yet every insult became fuel. They did not dilute their aim to satisfy others. They refined it until results silenced criticism. He takes comfort in that lineage. To follow the law of single aim is to join a brotherhood of builders, thinkers, and dreamers who defied distraction through devotion. He rises and walks once more to the vision board. The images gleam softly under the lamp's halo. He touches the center photo and says aloud, "I know what I want. I believe I can have it. I will not rest until it becomes real." The words vibrate through the quiet like a command issued to the unseen. He feels something shift not outside but inside, the silent confirmation of alignment. Midnight. The air is still. He turns off the lamp, and for a moment the room is completely dark. Yet the image on the board remains imprinted behind his eyelids, glowing, vivid, alive. Focus has transferred from external to internal. The vision no longer needs light, it lives within him. He lies down, the phrase echoing softly in his mind. My aim is one, my mind is steady, my outcome is certain. Sleep arrives, but it is not escape. It is incubation. The subconscious begins its work connecting dots, arranging coincidences, attracting opportunities. The machinery of faith hums quietly through the night. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, he sees a scene himself, years from now, standing before the completed vision, calm, grateful, fulfilled. The world will call it destiny. He will call it design. And in that dream, Napoleon Hill's voice drifts through the silence like a whisper from eternity. When your purpose is clear, your path appears. He smiles in his sleep. The lamp is out, but the fire is lit forever. Weeks later, he walks through the same noisy streets, but now the noise cannot touch him. He moves as if protected by an invisible field. The city hasn't changed, but he has. Horns still blare, vendors still shout, the tide of humanity still spills across intersections in restless motion. Yet, walking among them, he feels no pull, no tension. He moves through chaos the way wind moves through tall grass felt, but never hindered. Something invisible surrounds him, a stillness that others can sense but cannot name. They part slightly as he passes, as if instinct recognizes order when it meets it. Weeks of practice have turned silence into strength. What began as effort has ripened into nature. His steps are unhurried, deliberate, his gaze unwavering. The man who once flinched at every vibration now carries the calm density of a mountain. This, he realizes, is mastery, not the absence of noise, but immunity to it. He stops at a crosswalk. Cars surge by in waves of sound. He watches the lights change without impatience. The noise enters his ears but finds no echo inside. He has trained his mind to remain a closed circuit. Distractions arrive and depart without stealing energy. His focus no longer fights the world, it includes it, then transcends it. Mastery does not mean the world becomes quieter. It means you no longer need it to be. He remembers the first mornings of silence, the restless thoughts, the panic of stillness, then the discipline of attention, the daily ritual of exclusion, the sharpening of aim. Each law built upon the last until they merged into a single vibration, sovereignty. Now, walking through this street, he can feel all those lessons integrated within him like layers of armor. The law of silence gave him control of inner sound. The law of attention taught him where to aim his energy. The law of exclusion purified that aim from pollution. The law of single aim bound all his fragments into one clear direction. Together they have formed the invisible field that now shields him. The mind that was once fragmented is now unified, a laser cutting through chaos. When the mind unifies, reality reorganizes. People around him sense it. They turn, drawn by something they can't explain. It isn't his clothes or posture. It's presence, the quiet magnetism of one who needs nothing from the world because he already commands his own frequency. He passes a cafe window and catches his reflection. The same face, yet different. The eyes hold depth where once there was distraction. Even his posture has changed, shoulders back, breathing even, energy centered. He recalls Napoleon Hill's phrase, "The dominating thoughts of one's mind attract their physical equivalent." Weeks of dominated thought have sculpted his body, his aura, his tone. The transformation was invisible until it became undeniable. He enters the cafe, the same one where he once wrote, "I do not chase distraction, I command direction." The noise is still there. Espresso machines hissing, music playing, conversations overlapping. But now, the sound feels like weather, something that exists around him, not within him. He chooses a corner table, sets his notebook down, and opens to a clean page. Without hesitation, he writes, "I am unmoved by noise, I am moved by purpose." He underlines it once. The ink glows under the cafe light. This is not an affirmation. It is a diagnosis of his current state. A waitress approaches, smiling unconsciously wider than she expected to. There is something grounding about his stillness. It settles her nervous energy. As she leaves, he notices others, glancing his way the way people glance toward a fire on a cold night. They cannot explain why, but his presence offers quiet relief. He remembers Hill's observation that success is magnetic. True magnetism is not charisma or charm, it is coherence. When mind, emotion, and action move in the same direction, they generate a field that alters the environment. The man who masters himself influences reality without demanding it. He takes a slow sip of coffee. Every motion feels intentional. Even lifting the cup becomes ritual, a reminder that mastery expresses itself in the smallest details. There is no hurry, no wasted gesture. He feels like an instrument finely tuned after years of static. He smiles faintly. So this is what control feels like, he thinks. Not domination, but direction. The world outside continues its noise. Somewhere, two people argue. A siren wails, yet inside, the calm deepens. He feels compassion now for the restless energy of others. He remembers being trapped in that storm of reaction, the need to comment, to respond, to prove. But mastery erases the need for noise-based validation. It replaces reaction with observation. He writes again, "Reaction is the language of the untrained mind. Response is the dialect of mastery." Hill once said that self-control is the hardest job a man will ever undertake. Sitting there, he understands why. The world does not reward calm, it provokes motion. Every billboard, every algorithm, every whisper of urgency tries to steal your stillness. Yet paradoxically, stillness is the only real wealth. He breathes deeply and feels his energy condense again, like light focusing through glass. Mastery is conservation. Every thought saved from reaction becomes power stored for creation. He walks later through a park where children play and dogs bark. The noise is joyous, natural, alive. He feels connected to it, not disturbed by it. This, too, is new. Earlier, silence felt sacred only in solitude. Now he can find it anywhere. True silence, he realizes, isn't the absence of sound, it's the absence of internal disturbance. He stops near a fountain. Water arcs and falls in rhythmic loops. Each drop lands with perfect precision. That is mastery. He thinks movement that repeats without error because it flows from law, not impulse. The fountain wastes nothing. Every drop returns to its source. He sees himself in it. His thoughts now flow in cycles of purpose, returning always to the center. He closes his eyes briefly and hears the faint hum of life around him. It's not noise anymore, it's music. The same sounds that once irritated now harmonize. The field of mastery doesn't silence the world, it tunes it. He recalls Hill's principle of definiteness of purpose combined with persistence. Mastery, he understands, is persistence refined by peace. The novice acts from tension, the master acts from tranquility. Both move, but one wastes energy fighting resistance, while the other moves with the current of universal law. He begins to see how mastery radiates authority without aggression. People sense it instantly. They trust those who are not easily shaken because steadiness signals truth. Even animals respond to calm energy, so does opportunity. The universe, after all, mirrors the vibration you maintain, not the words you speak. He writes another line. Certainty is the silent magnet of success. Then he adds beneath it, when purpose leads, force follows. As twilight settles, the city lights awaken, flickering like neurons. He walks again, noticing how naturally the crowd parts to make way. No one knows why. Perhaps they sense his rhythm. He moves like water, finding its course inevitable, composed. The invisible field travels with him. He reflects on the path that brought him here. Each law, silence, attention, exclusion, single aim was a rung on the ladder. Mastery is not a single moment of enlightenment. It is the cumulative weight of disciplined days. The repetition of stillness has rewired his nervous system. He no longer needs to remind himself to breathe slowly, to focus, to return. These have become reflexes. The discipline has turned into identity. He reaches a bridge overlooking the river. The city's reflection trembles on the surface, fragmented by wind. He leans on the railing and studies it. That was me once, he thinks, a reflection distorted by movement. Now within, the water has stilled. The inner world mirrors reality without distortion. Clarity at last. He hears Hill's voice again from memory. You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. It no longer sounds poetic. It sounds precise. To be master of one's fate is simply to be master of attention. When attention is ruled, life obeys. He whispers the creed softly. I am unmoved by noise. I am moved by purpose. The sentence vibrates through the chest more than the throat. It feels elemental, like truth speaking to itself. He notices how even his thoughts have become economical. No mental chatter, no self-argument. He moves from idea to action in one line. This clarity saves time, energy, and emotion. The field of mastery has refined decision-making to intuition. He no longer debates with himself. He knows. The subconscious, once polluted by uncertainty, now acts as silent ally. He smiles faintly, understanding that mastery does not make life easier. It makes it cleaner. Challenges still come, but friction turns into feedback. Obstacles become mirrors revealing what remains to be refined. The master welcomes resistance because it sharpens precision. He writes in his mind as he walks, the world tests the strength of your alignment. Every challenge asks only one question. Are you still centered? He is. Later, back in his apartment, he places his notebook on the desk. The same lamp glows above it, steady as before. The air carries that quiet hum of equilibrium he now associates with truth. He looks around and realizes how simple the room has become. What once felt empty now feels spacious. Minimalism, he sees, is the outer reflection of an organized mind. He sits, opens the notebook, and reads all the earlier affirmations, the laws of silence, attention, exclusion, and single aim. Each line feels like a stepping stone he once struggled to reach but now stands upon effortlessly. He writes beneath them, "When practice becomes nature, discipline becomes peace." He pauses, then adds another. The final stage of focus is presence. Presence is the outcome of every law. When silence steadies thought, attention directs energy, exclusion removes waste, and single aim unites purpose, the result is presence, complete awareness in motion. He recalls a passage from Hill about the unseen forces of faith. There is a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. Readiness, he understands, is mastery's signature. To be ready is to have no inner conflict left unresolved. The master does not beg the universe, he prepares a space for its gifts. He closes his eyes and visualizes his future once more. But unlike before, there is no tension, no craving. The vision feels inevitable, like a sunrise that will arrive whether he watches or not. This is faith in its highest form, calm expectation without grasping. He whispers, "What I seek is already seeking me." A warmth spreads through him, certainty, not excitement. Excitement burns fast, certainty endures. Midnight approaches. The city's hum softens to a low vibration. He stands by the window again, looking down at the same streets that once overwhelmed him. Now they seem smaller, almost gentle. He realizes the external world never changed size. His awareness simply expanded beyond it. He touches the glass, feeling the coolness against his fingertips. Beneath it lies a world that once dictated his emotions. Now it responds to his energy. This reversal is the hallmark of mastery, the shift from being at effect to being at cause. He breathes deeply, slow and full. Each inhale draws strength, each exhale releases control. In the still rhythm of that breath, he feels a quiet joy, the joy of command without struggle. As he turns away from the window, the light from the lamp forms a halo on the floor. He steps into it, the glow surrounding his feet like a threshold. He understands that mastery is not a final destination, but a field, an atmosphere one carries everywhere. Enter it once, and it travels with you. He whispers again one last time before sleep, "I am unmoved by noise. I am moved by purpose." The words settle into the silence like stones sinking into water. Ripples spread through the unseen layers of reality, reaching distances the conscious mind will never measure. Tomorrow will bring its demands, its noise, its temptations, but none of them will enter the field. Because once the mind has tasted mastery, chaos becomes merely background music to its calm. He blows out the lamp. Darkness fills the room, yet everything feels illuminated from within. The city continues its restless song, unaware that one of its citizens has risen above its frequency. And somewhere, perhaps in the same quiet current that carries all thought, Napoleon Hill's voice murmurs through the stillness. The master does not seek control of the world, he seeks control of himself, and the world follows. The night breathes, the master rests, the field remains. Dawn again. Golden light spills over the horizon. The man closes his journal, smiles faintly, and watches the sun rise in complete stillness. The first light of morning unfurls like a slow breath from heaven. The horizon glows gold, then amber, then soft white as the city awakens beneath it. He sits by the window, the same seat where months earlier he battled noise, confusion, and restlessness. The same place where he first learned to pause, to listen, to command the silence. Now the air around him hums with quiet authority. Every molecule feels alert, alive, as if the universe itself has leaned closer to hear his thoughts. He closes his journal, a thin smile on his lips, not prideful but peaceful. The final page is filled, not with plans or goals, but with stillness. He doesn't need to write another word. The lesson is complete. The journey that began in chaos has circled back to calm. But this calm is not the fragile kind that shatters at the first disturbance. This calm is power silent, steady, unshakable. Outside, life moves again, engines start, doors open, footsteps hurry along sidewalks, yet none of it stirs him. He has become what he once sought, a man anchored in peace while the world spins madly. The journey ends where it began in silence. But this silence is no longer empty. It hums with command. It is alive, radiant, filled with direction. This is not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of mastery, the pause before creation, the breath before brilliance, the still point from which everything moves. He remembers the first time he tried to be silent, how his thoughts raced like wild horses, how every sound felt like invasion. The silence then was uncomfortable, an unfamiliar mirror reflecting truths he didn't want to see. But he stayed. He endured it. He returned to it each day until the silence changed shape. What once felt like emptiness became fullness. What once felt like exile became home. Now, he knows. Peace is not a prize you earn at the end. It's the platform of all creation. Every idea, every fortune, every destiny is born in this sacred quiet. The world calls it inspiration. Napoleon Hill called it infinite intelligence. It's the frequency where the conscious and subconscious mind shake hands with the divine. The golden light fills the room completely. Dust particles float like tiny planets in orbit, visible only because of the light that reveals them. He sees in them the same truth Hill spoke of. When you can see and feel your goal within the silence of your own mind, it is already yours. The words echo softly through the still air. He doesn't repeat them, he feels them. They vibrate inside him, not as theory, but as lived experience. He has seen and felt his goal many times, first as a flicker, then as a picture, then as a reality forming before his eyes. The dream that once seemed far away now lives within him. It's no longer something he's chasing, it's something he's becoming. He realizes now that manifestation isn't magic, it's alignment. The universe cannot deny a mind that vibrates in harmony with its intention. Silence is the tuning fork that aligns that vibration. He looks out at the sunrise and thinks, this is what faith feels like. Quiet, steady, inevitable. He breathes deeply. The air feels cleaner, the light warmer. For a long moment, there is no separation between breath and being, between self and stillness. He inhales peace. He exhales gratitude. The noise of the world returns, but it no longer enters. The honking cars, the chatter, the pulse of city life all continue as before, but he no longer reacts. The sound has lost its grip. The outer world remains noisy, yet the inner world has become absolute silence, a sanctuary that cannot be breached. He reflects on this paradox. Mastery doesn't escape the storm. It carries the calm that controls it. This, he realizes, is the final truth. Enlightenment is not withdrawal from life, but dominion within it. You don't transcend the world by leaving it. You transcend it by walking through it untouched. He stands, stretches, and walks to the mirror. The man staring back is familiar yet transformed. There's no sign of strain in his eyes, no battle left to fight. The face is calm, yes, but behind that calm lies something even rarer certainty. Not the noisy certainty of ego, but the quiet kind that needs no proof. The certainty of alignment. The certainty that comes when a man's thoughts, emotions, and actions finally move as one current instead of three competing tides. He places his hand against the mirror and says softly, "Thank you." He's not speaking to the reflection. He's speaking to every version of himself that kept walking through confusion, temptation, exhaustion. Each version was necessary. Each failure was a lesson in disguise. The chaos, he realizes now, was never the enemy. It was the curriculum. Every distraction he learned to overcome strengthened the muscle of silence. Hill wrote that every adversity carries within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Standing here, he finally sees that seed. It was him. His own awareness, refined through struggle, has become the benefit. He returns to the window and watches the sun climb higher. Light spills over rooftops, illuminating the city like revelation. He remembers the early days when he sought motivation from books, videos, quotes, all external sources. They were sparks, but temporary. Now he understands that true motivation is internal combustion. It begins in silence and sustains itself through purpose. This silence is not passive. It is active potential. Beneath it, life vibrates with readiness. The same way a seed lies still before it breaks open, the same way the ocean pauses before it births a wave. Creation always begins in stillness. He whispers to himself, "I am not waiting for opportunity. I am preparing for it in silence." The words echo through the room, soft but absolute. He thinks of Hill's imagery of the subconscious as a fertile field. Whatever is planted there grows, but the soil must first be tilled, cleared of weeds, stones, and noise. That's what these months have been. Cultivation. He has pulled out impatience, doubt, comparison, fear. Now the soil is clean, the seed of purpose lies deep within it, and in this sacred silence it grows unseen but unstoppable. He walks to his desk and runs his fingers across the closed journal. The leather is worn, edges softened by use. It has become a map of his transformation from chaos to command, from reaction to realization. He picks it up, presses it to his chest, and breathes in deeply. Gratitude swells. Not the loud gratitude of excitement, but the quiet kind that hums beneath peace. He whispers, "Thank you, silence, for teaching me how to listen." The sun now stands tall above the horizon. The room fills with golden warmth. He can see dust motes glowing like small universes in motion, each one, a reminder that even what appears insignificant is illuminated by light. He sits again, eyes half closed, body relaxed. The silence feels thicker now, almost tangible, like a presence surrounding him. It is not loneliness, it is companionship. He realizes that silence has been the teacher all along, patient, consistent, impartial. Words inspire, but silence transforms. It was silence that revealed his patterns, silence that rebuilt his discipline, silence that connected him to infinite intelligence. Everything else was commentary. He remembers Hill's description of how the greatest ideas are born. First comes thought, then faith, then action. But the birthplace of that thought is always the quiet chamber of the mind. All creation begins there. He smiles, recognizing the simplicity of it, the truth that people overlook because it feels too gentle to be powerful. Yet here he sits, proof of its strength. The silent mind has moved mountains within. He opens his eyes again, and the world looks sharper, brighter. Every color seems more vibrant, every sound clearer. Awareness has expanded beyond thought. He can sense life moving not just around him, but through him, as if he and the world share the same heartbeat. This is the essence of mastery. Not separation, but unity. The still mind merges with the movement of the universe until they become one rhythm. You no longer chase life, you dance with it. He whispers softly, "I am no longer a seeker. I am a participant in creation." The words land with calm finality. There is nothing left to pursue, only to express. The mountain has been climbed, not for the view, but for the silence found at the top. He gathers his things slowly, journal, pen, cup. Every motion is deliberate. When the mind is silent, the body becomes graceful. He walks to the door and pauses before leaving. The world awaits same streets, same people, same demands, yet it feels different. Because perception, when purified by silence, alters reality itself. He steps outside. The breeze greets him like an old friend. The scent of morning fills his lungs. Each step forward feels like a continuation of meditation. The city's noise returns in full, the horns, the chatter, the footsteps, but it flows around him harmlessly. The field of mastery has become permanent. He moves through the crowd, not as someone avoiding chaos, but as someone radiating calm into it. Wherever he walks, stillness follows. Conversations soften. People feel at ease without knowing why. This is how peace multiplies, not through preaching, but through presence. At a crosswalk, a child accidentally bumps into him, spilling juice onto the pavement. The boy looks terrified, apologizing quickly. The man smiles, kneels, and wipes the spill with a napkin. "It's okay," he says gently. The tone carries no irritation, only calm. The boy nods, still uncertain, but something about the man's serenity steadies him. They share a brief glance, wordless understanding before parting ways. As the man stands, he realizes that this is what true power looks like. Not control over others, but control over self. Not dominance, but direction. The ability to maintain peace in any moment is the highest wealth a person can own. He whispers to himself as he crosses the street. Power is silent. Noise is the disguise of the uncertain. And in that thought, he feels Hill's wisdom vibrating through time, that calm certainty is the secret of all builders, all dreamers, all leaders who shape history from invisible thought. He walks until he reaches the park where it all began. The same bench waits beneath the same tree. He sits. Sunlight filters through the leaves, dappling the ground with gold. Birds move in and out of shadow. The air carries the scent of morning earth. He sits with eyes closed and heart open. Inside him, the silence expands again, infinite, eternal, sacred. He feels the connection between his breath and the universe's rhythm. Each inhale is creation, each exhale, surrender. The circle is complete. This is not the end of his journey. It is the awakening of a new way of being. He knows he will face noise again, challenges again, emotions again. But now, none of them can disturb his center. The foundation is unshakable. He doesn't need the world to be silent anymore. He is the silence. He smiles softly and whispers one last time, I am unmoved by noise. I am moved by purpose. I do not chase distraction. I command direction. My aim is one. My mind is steady. My outcome is certain. And then, with eyes open to the glowing morning, he breathes in the truth that has carried him from the first word to this moment. When you can see and feel your goal within the silence of your own mind, it is already yours. He stands feeling sunlight pour over his shoulders. The city hums, the world continues, and the man, now master, walks forward, not escaping the storm, but carrying the calm that controls it. The silence follows him like a shadow of light, invisible, unbreakable, divine.